Welcome to Transcendence Cinema. In this podcast, me, Greg, and my co host Victor will be exploring films that transcend the art of storytelling or artists that use the art of filmmaking to tell stories. And today we're going to be exploring Altered States. So, Victor, you are the one that picked this movie. So, what made you want to do this one?
I've actually been wanting to watch this movie for quite a while. I bought it a few years ago at a local DVD music store, and I I'm just drawn to films that deal with um, psychedelics, drugs, like anything that sort of alters the mind. I find to be very fascinating, and just the premise interested me. The director interests me, and so all those elements combined made me think that this might be a good film to talk about or bring up to you.
Definitely, because I wanted to do this podcast where we talked about like art house films and, like I said, that filmmakers that transcend film, like whether it be with their storytelling, whether it be with visuals or concepts or something like that. So this was definitely like a good jumping off point because it gave me a really good idea of what I want to do with this podcast. And it's
Hmm.
like take these movies that have really interesting ideas and kind of just have jumping off points of discussion. um, this movie was actually recommended to me by a friend. She's like, "You got to watch Altered States." So finally, this gives me an excuse to watch it. This is another
Absolutely.
reason I wanted to do the podcast so we can watch movies that we wouldn't watch otherwise.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
perfect reason to.
right. So, it's super interesting because the deprivation tank is very heavily talked about in this movie.
Mhm.
And I've only just heard about it recently because of Joe Rogan and all that, of course.
Okay.
I didn't realize it was such an old. I mean, it's not that old, but from the 50s, 60s. It
That was
was,
something that was used in research.
yeah, to research psychedelics. I guess the MK Ultra, I'm assuming anyway.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't really aware of its usage either in history. It's something that I've known about for a while, um, but like its effects and science, I've never really dug into. But definitely after watching this, I'm like, I sort of want to experience one myself or just read
Mhm.
more about what exactly it's doing to the brain or how your brain responds to being in an environment like that.
Mhm.
Um, very fascinating.
Yeah, I saw that there was a deprivation tank like mini documentary from Vice. It wasn't really that informative, but this
Oh,
guy goes and he does a couple of deprivation tanks and talks about it, but there was one guy, he's tried the deprivation tank.
mhm.
And he's like, he didn't really get anything out of it until like the last 10 minutes. He said he saw a like red beam and like the most beautiful music started playing. And then next thing he knows, there's like a knock on the tank. And he's like, wait, like I was just getting into it. So he got like obsessed with deprivation tanks.
Yeah.
So I'm super interested in them, but we talked before and we were talking, we neither of us have done any psychedelics or anything like that.
Right.
Is there any reason you haven't?
Um, I think I think it's the unpredictable nature of it is what sort of scares me from trying it.
A
I like,
100%.
yeah, I mean, my brother, I don't think he'll care. He's tried psychedelics and
Hmm.
um, he says he had a pretty wild experience with it and he enjoyed it. And that was like something that drew me a bit closer to wanting to try it, but you still just the fact that like, okay, I'm gonna be in this altered state um for hours and I pray to God that it's, gonna be a decent experience. And that's just like not something I totally want to gamble with. Um
Right.
I'm much more I'll smoke a little weed for a bit, for a couple
Yeah.
hours. And then, that's pretty mild. But yeah, it's that unpredictable nature of it that I think just makes me very unsure whether or not I want to. Um
Y Yeah, I've always had this thing is like if this is my point of view of the whole thing is if you're gonna do psychedelics, you're basically walking up to a door in your brain, knocking on it and opening it, and you don't know what's on the other side. And that scares the shit out of me because
Yeah.
I bring that back to this movie because in this movie, he's trying to use psychedelics, deprivation tanks, and everything to kind of like, he's having these visions and he thinks he's able to understand what they mean with these
Mhm.
psychedelics, you know? And it's really interesting because it's almost like a reverse in human evolution. He
Yeah.
like de-evolves as he uh has these experiences. But I've always heard like in our DNA there things that our ancestors have experienced are still in our DNA, and if we
Mm.
can learn how to, we can experience them, or I don't know. And that's kind of what they do here is he he does it so much that he turns into an ape man or a caveman, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was pretty wild. I was like, "Whoa, we went there, didn't we?"
Right, yeah.
But I do understand what the movie's trying to do is because, like, maybe not physically, but mentally, if we could tap into that, like, caveman brain, I think it would be super interesting. Because I do think we have those DNA molecules, like, buried inside of us somewhere. I don't know, that's just some theories I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, and this is like a subject I don't know a whole lot about, and I sort of try to do like a very quick rundown of certain topics well before we started this podcast.
Mhm,
But yeah, the idea that these sort of memories or instincts are just buried deep within us, and that they haven't necessarily left our mind, but they're in there, tucked in somewhere. And I mean, we can even experience that just with our own memories. I mean, you hear about suppressed memories, things that maybe have caused you trauma in your life that are just sort of buried deep that aren't really brought up until something happens, or therapy or hypnotism. These things sort of arise out of well, seemingly nowhere. And I
mhm.
think it's really interesting to think about something farther than that. That's not necessarily ours, but in a sort of like collective, like being type of way, collective, like almost consciousness type state. Um, really just like far out. And I don't know how anyone could ever prove that that actually is a thing. I don't know.
Well, I have heard from, people that have taken psychedelics, and they said they just feel one with the earth, and you just realize everything's kinda connected together.
Mhm.
And you just feel a part of this universe. You're not because us as humans, we're very narcissistic and we think we're more important than we really are. But on psychedelics, you realize like everything is just like put together, like just one big, like you said, one big thing.
Yeah, I think that's and then what's cool is that like a lot of people take psychedelics, like you said, that's like a cult, like that's like a singular experience that most people feel.
Hmm.
And I think that's just that's one reason why I'm like super curious because I kind of already believe a lot of that without taking any of those chemicals.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because I've heard people say that like smoking pot is not the same as doing psychedelics,
Not at all.
but but I feel like I have had those experiences smoking pot in the
Oh,
past.
okay.
I just feel like I just understand the world better, I guess. I don't know. It just also could just be the pot, but
Well, you could also say that about that could also just be the LSD, you know?
Mhm.
I it's like one of those things where that just comes down to, I mean, really, it's just a different perspective. I mean, it's still it sounds weird, but it's in a sense, it's still your reality, whether or not you're under these drugs. And does it count? I think why not? If someone has a very spiritual experience with a psychedelic, like who's to say that, oh, that doesn't mean anything or that's just the drug? Like, I think that that could still have, I mean, it
Yeah.
does seem like it has profound effects on people in like a meaningful way.
Right, and who are you to say that is meaningless or doesn't mean what they say it means?
Right.
For some reason, I was thinking about Shallow Hal. Have you ever seen that movie?
Shallow. No, I don't think so.
Oh, with Jack Black. Oh, so this movie, he he comes on Tony Robbins. He meets Tony Robbins,
Mhm.
and Tony Robbins is like, "You're a very shallow guy. You only look at the outer beauty. You don't look at the inner beauty." He's like, "Let me help you." So Tony Robbins puts this like voodoo spell on him where he only sees the inner beauty, but it looks outer beauty to him. So these really like conventionally ugly women are very beautiful to him.
Oh,
And
okay.
his friend takes that away somehow. Like he's
Okay.
able to say this word that makes it stop. He's like, "Why would you do that to me?" He's like, "I just wanted you to be normal." He's like, "Who's the most beautiful person in the world?" He's like, "Wonder Woman." He's like, "What if everyone told you that Wonder Woman wasn't beautiful?" He's like, "I wouldn't care because, I think she's beautiful." He's like, "Exactly, that's what I had."
Mm,
Um, but that just made me think of what you were saying. Like your experiences doesn't, are your own experiences. They can be whatever you want them to be.
that's yeah, pretty much.
But also in this movie, so he dives deeper and deeper, and the only way I can like comprehend this is he turns into what? Dr. Manhattan? The know all, see all.
Yeah, basically, it becomes
Yeah,
sort of
so
like a one, like a just this like a singular organism. I don't know how to explain it. Just like a almost not like a nothing, but like an everything. I don't know how to
y-
explain it.
that's a good way to say it. He's everything and nothing at the same time.
Right,
Yeah. So that was super interesting.
dude. Yeah, like I like I said, I didn't really know what this movie was about besides the premise, and it really fucking the effects, dude, and like just the certain like stages this character goes down
Hmm.
kind of blew my mind. I was really impressed by not only like the visuals, but like I guess how far they took it. Like this character reaching this state of, like I said, everything and nothing, very just like
I
out
think
there.
I think he's just like I said, I think it's regressing and he's becoming the star that he originally like formed from,
Like, yeah, absolutely.
Um but yeah, this came out in 1980. I didn't realize it was so old. Like I thought this movie came out in like the 90s. So watching it I was like, "Oh, this is older than I realized it was going to be." But like so I mean, some of the filmmaking is a little old and, campy or whatever, but it
For sure,
still holds up as a film
dude.
in 2022.
Yeah, I'm.
Like
That's what I was saying. I've not like seen a lot of movies recently. I've been sort of uh, on a dry spell with movie watching, and so it's really refreshing to see a movie that surprises me,
mhm.
especially from older films. And it's not to say that older films can't surprise, but I don't know. Sometimes if they're too aged, it's just like
It is
it
hard, yeah,
doesn't
sometimes.
have that staying power, at least to me. But
Mhm.
for a film from the '80s, I mean, and especially a sci-fi film with sort of experimental moments and pretty far out effects, this definitely holds up. It
Mhm.
was pretty awesome. I mean, like you said, there's some campy moments definitely with the caveman. I was not expecting that, but
Right.
it's still pretty fun.
Yeah, I had that, like, body horror and everything from the '80s, the '80s is known for.
Kind of reminded me of like a Cronenberg, like The Fly or something like that.
Oh, 100%. Um, oh, I didn't touch on the one part. He did
Mhm.
I don't know what drug because he went to Mexico and he did a drug.
Yeah.
Um, the only other thing I can think of is, like, peyote is
Mhm.
something similar. Like, it's, like, a ritual drug, you have shamans and, the works.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know it that's the thing is it doesn't really explain what he's doing. It's just kinda like he's going down to Mexico to do this ritual.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think they actually give it a name. They just say, I think one of the characters who takes him to that area describe it. What they use is like the first primordial plant,
Mhm.
and it's just like this completely ancient herb. Um, but yeah, like it kind of has like a peyote or like an ayahuasca sort of ritualistic aspect to it, at least
Yeah,
as far as
ayahuasca,
my
that's the one I
knowledge.
was trying to think of, yeah.
Yeah. But it seems like they just sort of boil these plants or mushrooms into a pot. For some reason, they decide to draw some blood
Mhm.
from the lead character and put that into it, which he doesn't not a fan of. I mean, for obvious reasons.
Right.
But yeah, that scene, dude, like, was pretty intense, I
It
thought.
was really intense, like, I don't smoke pot, but if I was high, that would fuck me up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just the anticipation of, slicing his hand, any sort of like cuts on film, I'm just like, ugh. Seeing
Oh,
like stuff,
same.
especially like towards like the webbing of the finger, I thought that was pretty brutal.
Right, it's
Um,
like you can feel it almost, like, "Ouch,
exactly.
why
Just
did you do that to
wince.
me?"
Um, but there was some like really fucking impressive imagery in this.
Yeah. Mhm. I have to agree.
Like I mean, the most basic was just like those fireworks, those like sparklers they were like shooting onto him as he was stumbling through the cave when he was first starting to feel the effects.
Mhm.
Like very simple execution, but like it looked so cool. So
Right,
good.
right. That's what I was thinking too, I'm like, "God, these are, like, such simple things, but the way they're, like, weaved together, just like I don't know, it's very cool looking, very visionary."
Yeah, it's just cool to see like a sci-fi film from the 80s implement these like almost like avant-garde imagery, especially with these like hallucination scenes, the drug trip scenes,
Mhm.
and also bring in like some like kind of high concept ideas like this sort of de-evolving and coming going back to your primordial roots with the use of drugs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I might be ignorant, but I haven't seen a lot of movies go this route with drug use. Like usually it's like Rec Room for a Dream, how like drugs ruin your life and shit like that.
Hmm.
But this one definitely like drug use as an exploration of the human experience, I guess.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I can't think of really any films at the moment that sort of use drugs as sort of as and see them as like a tool. And obviously, this takes it a bit farther and into sort of dangerous territory. But just the just using it as a tool, I don't, I don't know. I haven't really seen it explored often. I think that's just neat because I think that I mean, from a lot of the research that's come up in the last decade or so, it seems like there's significant evidence and that these sort of things can help. And they're not just
Right.
like a
Like the
drug
microdosing.
culture, like just getting high sort of thing. Like it actually has some benefits.
Y- right. I like how you said using it as a tool, not just a crutch, I guess,
Yeah,
for life.
absolutely. Yeah.
Do
So
you think
the
you think
yeah.
you'd ever do like the guided um trips, I guess? Because I was thinking about it like if I was ever going to do this
Mhm.
and you had a shaman there to like guide me through it, maybe I might try it.
Yeah. I thought about it. I mean, I don't know where I would go. I mean, I live in Seattle, so I'm sure there's like some sort of I don't know, some sort of like hippie sort of commune.
Going around asking random people, "Are you a shaman? Are you a shaman?"
Actually, I know someone, a family member who went to go do uh I think it was ayahuasca actually. He went to some sort of like retreat for a couple weeks
Oh yeah.
in the state. Um but like again, it's just one of those things where like I am I ready to possibly just face all of this in the brain? Like I don't
Mhm. It's very like it's scary because that's the thing is like I think it's meant for like young people like that
Mhm.
don't have anything to lose. It's like you're still
Right.
living with your parents, you have your first job, and if you lose your mind a little bit, you can get it back.
Exactly. Once you're a little bit older, like you don't really have the a lot you have a it's you can't afford to lose any of your mind.
But at the same time, like young people, their minds haven't developed until what, 25, 30. so they
Mhm.
don't have like a clear grasp on, you know, I don't know, the world. Like I would feel more comfortable doing it now as a 36-year-old than a 21-year-old.
No, you're
But
definitely right, like, you have more experience, you have more just I don't know, bit more
you,
just experience in general. It's just
yeah, you know yourself better.
yeah, exactly. I think you're right. I think being older would probably be
Yeah.
more responsible time to do it.
Right. I think I was telling my wife, I was like, if I'm ever, because she doesn't want me to do it. She's like,
Mhm.
that stuff changes people. I don't want you to come back as a different person. I like who you are now. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. But if I'm on my deathbed, give me all the things before I die.
I'm sure man, that'd be the time to do it.
Right. On
Yeah,
my deathbed, that's my dying wish is like, I just want to be injected with LSD, ayahuasca. Like, I want to experience all these things before I die.
I can just imagine how either terrifying or beautiful that must be.
Right. And
I just
I'm leaving anyway, so I don't care.
it's one of those situations where you wish you could just, like, imagine exactly how it is or just, like, I don't know. That's just such a interesting situation to even think about.
Mhm.
But would you ever I mean, say, like, you didn't have someone saying, like, "Hey, I don't want you to doing this." Would you
Oh, 100%.
100%? Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I don't do it is because of my wife. I mean, I don't wanna say 100% because
Mhm,
like I said, there is that door that I'm scared to knock on.
mhm.
But if I'm by myself and I'm like, I don't have anyone else to really worry about, like, I don't mind losing my mind a little bit.
I might feel the same way, and if it was, like, a guided group thing where you're just around like-minded people, I mean, I think
Right.
that's part of it too, is having that sort of, comfortable, sort of welcoming setting.
Definitely. Because even, smoking pot, being around the wrong people just give you a bad trip. Like you
Oh,
think
yeah,
everyone's judging you and it's just not cool. So you definitely have to be around the right people.
for sure.
Yeah. Um, there was one thing else in this movie that I forgot to mention, and I don't remember what it is now. But how do you feel about the ending of the movie? It kind of like, I get it. Like, it's kind of a cute story and it had to come to an end somehow, but it's the love is everything.
I yeah, I didn't I that was the one other moment besides the ape thing at first that I was kinda like, alright." It felt very just too perfect of, like, a bow tie, like,
Right.
wrap it all up. Um, like, all honestly, visually, it was cool, and I get the message,
Hmm.
but, like, it just felt too clean.
Same. And I'm glad you said that because obviously this, is part of the War with Cinema. And Nick always gives me a hard time because I'm like, it ended too pretty. He's like, what are you talking about? It was a nice ending. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't want it to end like that. I want it
Right.
to be like, I don't know. It was like you said, it was a bow tie that I didn't want.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't mind if the movie wants to end on a note like that, but it just I don't know. I was sort of hoping for something a bit more ambiguous or
Hmm.
just like, I don't know.
Have you ever seen Annihilation?
Yes.
That kind of ending would have been satisfying.
Remind me again what happens in Annihilation? It's I only
So,
saw it one time.
spoilers for Annihilation. But she goes into the cave and it's her supposable, boyfriend or whatever, but it's not him, it's the actual like alien.
Hmm,
And then it's ambiguous, so it's kind of hard to say, but like the light, you kind of see the alien and then lights kind of like take over the whole screen and she kind of gets absorbed by the the alien, I guess.
mhm.
And it's just very ambiguous. It's very like, well, what just happened?
Oh, is
Did
that where it
they
ends?
Yeah. They're like, "Did they kill her? Did she become one with them?" Like, it's just you're not sure what happened. I
Oh,
mean, I'm that's what I remember the ending being.
I do remember that cave scene and with the light. I just couldn't remember if it actually ended there, but you're probably right. Uh,
That's how I remember it ending, but I could be wrong. But that kinda, like, ambiguous ending, like, having him become light and then light shines and then have the credits roll,
Mhm.
or like the whole TV turning white and then the credits roll. It's like, well, what happened?
Right.
Did he become a star? Is he the all
Exactly.
knowing?
Right. That would've been a really tight ending.
Right.
Um, but this like, oh, I can sort of switch between my externalized hallucinatory not even well, no, it wasn't hallucinatory, it was like he was he changed genetically,
Yeah, he was
but being
mutating
able to
into something.
change but he could, like, switch between the 2 states, I mean,
Him
I guess
hitting the
that's yeah.
I was just gonna say him hitting the wall and changing like he was a TV channel kinda had me laughing.
Yeah, that's for sure. Just,
It
like,
was just
changing
that
the antenna or having to switch the
right,
signal.
this isn't the frequency I want, I need a different channel.
Mhm.
I don't know, it's kinda cheesy, campy, but, I'll take it for what it is.
I think what '80s cinema isn't doesn't have a bit of camp
Right.
along with it, so it's just like, okay,
Yeah,
I'll
you
take it,
learn
I
to
guess.
accept it,
Yeah.
right. But,
Um,
uh
mhm.
but overall, I thought it was a pretty fun movie, like, I really, really enjoyed the ride.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it because yeah, I don't know, man. It's a very entertaining film. It brings up a lot of topics and concepts that I think hold weight
Mhm.
and even if there's just like pseudoscience stuff, it's still like super fascinating to talk about. Um, but honestly, there's a deprivation tank place in Seattle that I might go to, and I might have to report on the next episode about the experience.
I was gonna say because I haven't looked into it. I mean, I live in Florida, we have, like, everything, so
Mhm.
I'm sure there's one around here somewhere, but
Oh,
I
there has to
have
be.
been wanting to try it because I don't know, it's just there's something about it that intrigues me.
It sort of sounds like a kind of I don't I mean, I honestly don't know how what it's like besides this movie's, you know, over the top showing of it, but it almost kind of seems like a meditation type thing where you're sort of just in the moment.
Mhm.
I don't know, but like this hallucinatory stuff that people say they experience, I don't know what the hell that's about. I don't know how that works, but and that's why I'm curious because it's not a drug. You're just in a dark tank for a bit,
And
supervised. So how bad could it go?
yeah, right. But I guess it's the whole thing about being secure with yourself because you're gonna be hanging the guy in the documentary, he's like, "It's like going out on a date with yourself."
Mm.
And I do that regularly. I don't need a deprivation tank for it.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I
might
don't
not
know,
even
I'm
be
just
worth it.
yeah, 100%. I'm just that kind of person. I like to put on headphones, put on some music, and kinda just, like, go exploring in my mind and see where it goes kinda thing.
For sure.
And I don't know if people really do that, but it's so nice to just kinda, like, cut off from the world and just hang out with yourself.
I think more people, if they don't, they should.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to be aware of their thoughts and just how comfortable they are with themselves. Like I know some people who are just like they need to be around people or they can't. Like silence is just like too much to handle.
Yeah, silence is torture to them.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, that sucks because silence can be such a beautiful thing.
Mhm. I
Um,
have to agree. But it's also like, if you're feeling a certain way, stop and think about why you're feeling that way. Like, really getting to know yourself on, like, a really intimate level. So, like, when you start to feel a certain way, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling, embarrassed, you really understand why you're feeling that way. And that only comes from just the experience of silence and being in your own head.
yeah, I mean, it's sort of like a habit too of asking and reflecting. Like when you said, like,
Mhm.
when why am I angry? Why am I feeling anxious? It's just something you have to keep reflecting on. It's not going to be a one night thing where you're like, okay, now whenever I'm angry, I can respond a bit differently. But yeah, it's just important to reflect and
Yeah, and it is super interesting to go into a deprivation tank to see how those manifest themselves.
yeah, I'm gonna, I think it's called like Float Seattle. I'm gonna have to look into that. I think I might have to do it.
If you do, definitely, we'll definitely have to talk about it and talk
Oh,
about
for
the
sure.
experiences because I'm super curious, and maybe I'll try it myself if it's not too crazy expensive.
Hey, that'd be cool.
Because I,
We
because
both
I
do
can't
it and
just right.
get on the pod and talk about it.
Hell yeah, I can't. I don't know if I could justify my wife. Hey, I'm gonna go sit in this tube of water for an hour for $100. I'm sorry. What are you doing?
Right? Couldn't you just, like, do that in the bathtub or something
Right,
and
right,
turn
right.
turn off
Like,
the
can't
lights?
you do this here? Like, what?
Yeah.
It's not the same.
I have to actually pay money for it, that's how it makes it official.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. That's how I know it's really working.
Or
I give them
exactly.
a bunch of money.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Did you have any other thoughts about the film?
Um, I had something on tip of my tongue, and I don't know what it is. So he gets the deprivation tank. He meets the girl. He turns into a. Oh, I think I was just gonna talk about how the deprivation tank like turns into a nuclear reactor, and that was
Yeah,
kind of weird.
that was. Yeah, sort of just vanished. So much energy was just output, and it just obliterated the tank, and it became a almost like a cyclone of
Oh, right, right,
fog.
right. The fucking cyclone. I completely forgot about that thing. Yeah, it like implodes.
Yeah, and then he's just, like, in the soup of energy, and he's just, like, in it spinning in
Yeah.
agony and suffering.
I guess that's what I love about it is just like it's like it doesn't hold back. It goes for it. It's like we don't care how ridiculous this is. We know how ridiculous it is. We're just having fun.
Yeah.
And we're gonna what's funny is we're gonna be doing the fifth element on the next podcast with Nick and I.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking the same thing. Like this movie just doesn't hold back. It just goes for it. And I love movies like that. I appreciate them.
It's just great when a filmmaker doesn't feel the need to hold back, and I've heard a lot of this director's work. He's pretty out there with a lot of his ideas and just in his visuals in general. So it's just very nice to see someone not care to hold back and not play it safe because I think it's important to have creators like this who um, just push the boundaries. That's just what we need in the art world.
Yes, exactly. And
I mean, yeah,
those are
sorry.
the kind of the movies I want to do on this podcast with you is talking about those movies that really just like push the boundaries ever which way they can. And I just find them super interesting. But like it's not that Nick doesn't like these movies.
Mhm.
It's just he literally asked me, please don't give me these.
Well, if he asks, then yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Might have to create a new
Cause
space.
have you ever did you ever watch that movie Stalker?
No, I haven't watched it yet, dude. I own it. I've had it
It's
for like 5 years.
Yeah, it's like high art. And I didn't know what it was. I kind of bought it off of a whim. Like,
Mhm.
if you like these movies, you'll like this. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, Stalker, that sounds fun. So I bought it and I was like, hey, we're gonna do a blind watch on the podcast. He's like, all right, cool, I'm down. So I watched it and I was like, oh shit, what have I done?
You
He
guys, like,
comes
text
in.
each other when you watch the films, or do you go into the conversation blind?
Usually goes into a blind.
Okay,
Usually he holds everything in until he gets here.
you got it.
And if you go back and watch Stalker, like at the beginning, he's like, "Oh, I'm getting into your ass on this movie." Like he hated it.
Oh, man.
And he's asked me, he's like, "Please don't give me any more of these." Like
Well, I think Stalker in particular is a very I mean, like I said, I haven't seen it, but I just know it's a slow burn, like, very much
mhm.
so.
Yeah, it takes slow burn to a fucking takes it to the limit.
Takes it to the paint drying level.
Yes, but I enjoyed it. Like, there's a lot of philosophical dialogue in there
Mhm.
that I really found fascinating, and it's a beautiful movie. Like Tarkovsky is like a painter, but with a camera.
Oh, I love
He
it.
he makes the most gorgeous looking shots I've ever seen in a movie. So,
Oh, that's exciting.
if anything, there's that to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to just have a night to myself and get on that.
It's long as fuck. It's like 3 hours and 20 minutes. So,
Oh, awesome. My favorite types of movies.
it's a slow burn, and it takes a half a day.
Oh, good, yeah. See, that's the kind of film I'd like to see in a theater where, like, I I don't have any distractions besides like the people around me. Like I don't have my phone to get on. I don't have the outside world. Just I'm
Hmm.
in my own deprivation tank
Yes,
called the cinema.
100%. Yeah, I would love that. Me and Nick have talked about that, like opening our own theater, but we show movies we want to see,
Oh
not what's
man.
popular.
Yeah.
Like to just have Stalker up there for like a week. Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Do you guys have any like art house theaters in your town?
I think we do, but I don't really look into it too
Mm.
much. I kind of just watch them at home because it's a lot of effort.
Yeah, plus it costs money to go out, and especially if it's a movie that you can just see at home. Like,
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Like, I don't know. It's harder to go to the movies nowadays because we're getting back into that Hollywood. Just it's just the same old Hollywood, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um so there's not a whole lot coming out that I'm like interested. Nothing I'm like excited about.
totally get it. I
So,
mean, there's like a few movies that I want to see, but not enough for me to actually like. I mean, I live very close to a theater, like 5 minutes away, but it's still not. It's not enough for me to go see like Top Gun Maverick. I'm curious. I want to check it out, but I already missed the IMAX showing of it, so I'm just like, yeah, fuck it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I kind of just buy movies and I sit at home in my own little deprivation tank at my house and watch movies. But it would
That's
be cool to see like art house films on the big screen. I wish there was more of that. But there's just not the audience. That's the problem. Is like there's going to be all of 5 of us.
yeah, that the place really counts. 'Cause I mean, like in Seattle, we have a handful of independent art house theaters that play a variety of stuff. And yeah, I wish those were more frequent in major cities.
Yeah, I kind of
Common,
wish I wish there was more around Florida. Florida's like the I mean, it's the theme park state. So
right?
the movie theaters around here are basically like theme parks. In a sense. They only want to play the big action movies. There's not an art house scene very much. Right? There's a horror indie scene here.
That's cool though.
Yeah, it's not my scene, but there's a lot of guys around here that are really into like that indie horror stuff.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to We Massacre, but yeah. So there's
At least
that.
some of them are there. At least you've got
Right.
some sort of community,
Yeah,
independent.
definitely. Mhm. Um so I figured we'll keep on this train of like interesting topics for movies and I asked you if you've seen Flatliners.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah, I know
Uh,
there's the was it is it 90s or early 2000s?
yeah, I think it was 90s.
Okay.
I think it's like 94.
Yeah, I'm aware of it, and I know they did a remake like I don't know, last decade that I heard was kind of shit. So,
I saw the trailer and I could have told you it was shit because they take the concept and they push it too far.
oh, okay.
Like they push it into like horror territory and that's really not what it is. It's
Oh,
not a
really?
horror movie. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's refreshing to hear because I thought it was a horror film.
I mean, it's scary.
Right, but not in like the
Yeah.
2010s horror jump scare shit.
No, it just takes a concept and just kind of like scares you with it or it scared me anyway.
Sort of like
It's
Altered States does a bit.
Yes, definitely. But we're gonna play around with death.
Oh, lovely. One of my favorite topics to discuss.
So I figured we could do that one next. I figured it would be an interesting topic to talk
Oh yeah,
about
let's
and
do it.
revisit Flatliners.
I'm so down for that. I would love to. Death is a concept that I explore a lot in my own work. So, yeah, I'm on the same wavelength. Let's do it.
Hell yeah, super excited. Well, I guess until then, we'll leave it at that. Until next
Oh,
time.
sorry, I got
What's up?
one thing to point out.
Hey, go
Or
for it.
there's a few things in this movie I thought was pretty interesting. I forgot to even mention. Uh, it was just like a scene that I thought was insanely clever. It's during his trip in the cave.
Mhm.
He sees like Komodo dragon, which I think was Komodo or a
It was either a kimono or a very large iguana.
Yeah, or, one of those big lizards, but,
Yeah,
like
it was Godzilla.
yeah, we'll just go with that. But, like, it turns into his wife, and she's laying in a very strange position, sort of just looking around, and, the main character starts lays on his side,
Hmm.
and slowly over the course of this sequence,
Oh, right,
they
right, right,
become like
right.
statues and sand statues, and they
Hmm.
slowly all the sand starts to blow away, and it starts to sort of weather them down till they become like sand dunes. And
Hmm.
it was like such a beautifully put together sequence and so unexpected. It was so awesome. Like I that was just like one of the coolest things I've seen in the film in a fucking long time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I completely forgot about it. Yeah, because I was like, what are we doing? And I was like, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Let's see where this goes. And I love that he took his time with it. He
Yes.
really let it just sink in. And I was like, yes, please sit here for a minute. Let me embrace what you're trying to tell me if I don't understand it.
And exactly. And that's what I love about so much of this is that they go very abstract with and very symbolic. And like that sequence in particular, like it just goes on until they become nothing.
Mm.
And it's so like symbolic of his like state of being and state of mind, just like slowly deteriorating into nothing, into dust.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like, oh, so good.
It was. You could literally like clip out that scene and just play it.
Oh, for sure.
It is a really good scene. But actually, now that you said that, it reminded me what I was gonna talk about earlier.
Oh, okay.
Oh, just there was a lot of religious symbolism at
Yes.
first. There was that one, the very first trip, I guess you could say, where the goat's head
Oh
and
man.
on a cross, and I know it's a lot of religious symbolism because he's what is he suppressing religion because his parents don't like religion. Like there's that
Yeah.
one part where he keeps throwing the picture of Christ over his dad's face, and his dad is like yanking it off. It's almost like he's like wanting to push religion on them even though they're rejecting it.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
kind
know.
of saw it as like because he mentioned that after his father died, he just like sort of dropped any idea of religion.
Mhm.
Um, and seeing him throw on like it was almost like a tapestry of, of Christ onto his father, and him throwing it off and it catching on fire was sort of like a death of his his spiritual belief and also his physical father, a spiritual father and
Mhm.
physical father. I thought it was like a really clever use of imagery there. Um,
Right.
but and then sort of the whole film is him. I mean, that's basically the crux of him doing all this. I think is exploring that grief and like trying to understand like what does any of this mean? What is the point? And then because he also mentions like his father's last word was terrible. And he's like, well, we are suffering, and then the end is just suffering. So like, what is what's the truth? Like, what is the point?
Mhm.
Very almost kind of nihilistic outlook. And it sort of reaches a very like I don't know. The end of the film is very I don't know if nihilistic's the right word because they don't really reach a truth. It's just sort of like, yeah, this is confusing and there's a lot of suffering, but at least there's love, and then they
Yeah, exactly.
embrace.
No, nihilism. I kind of relish in nihilism, so
Mm, mhm.
I like to think I'm well versed in it. But yeah, nihilism is just uh, you know denying everything, denying existence. But yeah, I was super interested. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
I just like it's all the imagery of the regression, and I was trying to understand it because it starts with religion. That's his like first experience,
Mhm.
and then it goes to the caveman, and then it goes to him. I don't even know what to call it, but the entity.
Right.
So I don't know. I just thought it was super interesting. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's sort of a
If you play it forward, like you have the entity, and then we become apes, and then that's another thing I was going to talk about. Have you ever heard of the stoned ape theory?
yes. I think I
It's
heard
where
that on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, where the apes took psychedelics, and that's what helped them evolve into what we are today.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a fascinating concept. I mean, I don't see it not being I don't know, why not? I mean, that's definitely a possibility. Think about all the different plants that were just out there that contain these properties.
Right.
Definitely, I'm sure the primitive beings and our ancestors took these and were like, "Holy shit."
Yeah. Right.
And it's not something they're gonna legalize and make illegal, so they just probably went all out with it, I'm sure. Wildly
Right.
available.
Yeah, it's just a super interesting concept to me, and that's what I kept thinking about when he was in his caveman state. I'm like, "Oh, this is like stoned ape theory."
Yeah.
Like, but
And like you said,
it,
is sort of a devolving, but also evolving at the same time.
yes, yes, exactly. Like you have to go back to your beginnings to understand where you are.
Spot on.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But
that's
yeah.
all yeah. Oops, sorry.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say that that religious experience was the one thing that I wanted to talk about, and I finally reminded me because of that super awesome lizard sand scene you reminded me of.
Yeah, I completely forgot the first scene with the goat head, and, that was very, like, bold imagery to start the film out on. I was like, "Okay, this is kind of the film we're gonna be, dealing with." That's you don't see that often.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad it didn't beat us over the head with it though.
Mhm.
But it was very like Sam Raimi. Like Sam Raimi got his inspiration from that scene.
Mm, I can see that.
Yeah. I don't know. It just made me think of him.
But yeah, I mean, that's I don't know if I have much more to say in, like, a substantial way other than, like, uh, the music was good.
The
Other
music was great, wasn't it?
yeah, dude.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, man, the 80s are fucking rocking it with this fucking score.
Yeah, it was super, like there at times, it was very, like, minimal and avant-garde. A lot of the compositions were, and, very kinda eerie,
Hmm.
sound design, like, I think this actually won an Oscar for best sound and best score.
Really?
Yeah,
I
my
believe it.
DVD has, special features, and the special features consist of, paragraphs of text, um, and they're not really special features. One of them is, like, sort of just asking you questions like, "What do you believe is consciousness?" and "What is consciousness?" and "What are dreams?" And then also just some, like, factoids about the film, and that was one of them.
Oh, that's super
Hardly
interesting.
special features, but
Yeah, you probably got the same one that I got. I didn't look into those, but I might have to now.
mhm. But, yeah, that's I think that's all I've got on the film, man.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me too. I don't have a whole lot more, but yeah, it was a super I'm glad I watched this film. Like highly recommend it if
Yeah.
you haven't seen it.
Do you, you can cut this out, but do you do I forget, do you do ratings or you just do, like, recommend or not recommend?
It's
Or how do
funny
you wanna do
because
it?
Nick does ratings. He
Mhm.
does like a 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And he wants me to do a rating so bad. Like, what do you rate this movie? And I was like, all
Oh,
right, I
you
can
don't
do
do
that.
them, do you?
No, because it pisses him off.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'll do them with you just to piss him off even more.
Look, we can totally do a different system if you want. I don't care either way. I did ratings on my podcast, so
Yeah.
if you wanna do something a bit more, uh
I tried some experimental rating, but it just didn't pan out. So
mhm,
it for some reason the 1 to 10 just works, and that's why everyone does it.
yeah, that's I would say, like, we could do 1 to 10, 1 to 5, or just, like, recommend, not recommend, but that doesn't really, like, give a whole lot of insight, I guess. Saying I recommend a movie doesn't I don't know, doesn't
I
really
know
explain it.
it does kind of take the wind out of my sail whenever we're doing our quote unquote rating, he's like, I give it a 7.9, and I'm like, I give it a recommended. It's like it just kind of it's whatever, but I keep doing it because it upsets him. But I wonder if he's gonna listen to this. He'd be like, "What the fuck, man? You're only
Why'd you
doing
call me
that to
out?
piss me off." Yes, yes, I am only doing that to upset you because it's War with Cinema, and that's what we do.
Yeah, there's gotta be a bit of war and tension involved.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't given him a bad movie in a while. I need to step up my game.
Oh, like one that he's not gonna like or just like a
Eh,
bad movie?
No, like when he. I mean, I haven't given him. I had the Death Box for a while. It was like B
Yeah,
movies,
yeah.
and it just. I can never find a good time to do it, so I haven't given him one of those in a while. But
Just because
really, it's
you know it's
just.
gonna be a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess we can just do a 1 through 10 rating.
Okay, that works with me.
Um, God, where do I put this? Oh, now I feel the pressure of Nick. He gives everything a 7, but now I'm kind of like, I want to give
He
it a
gives everything a
7
7.
or an 8. I don't know. 7.5? 7.5 feels right.
Okay. I usually I'm like a 1 to 5 star guy by heart. So I'm thinking like what would a I'm like 4 and 4.5, but on a 1 to 10 scale, that would be like like an 8, 8.5.
Yeah.
Um, just because this had a lot of stuff in it that just I dig.
Hmm.
I really love high concept sci-fi ideas. And like I said, it dives into the psychedelic, spiritual, science, mind stuff.
Oh yeah, a concept alone, I give it a 10.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
concept alone, it's a 10. It's just the visuals. There was a couple of times that I was like, like for example, that end scene
Yeah.
whenever she's sitting on the floor and she's covered in whatever it is she's covered in, it looks really cheap, like a YouTube video. And it's just moments like that kind of scattered throughout the movie that kind of like take me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And I get it; it's kind of a product of its time
Mhm.
visually, but the visuals that it does use sometimes, like you were saying, like even for the '80s, this is fucking amazing. So
It is, and it makes me wonder, like, are there more films out there like this that just sort of push the boundaries of visuals in like a standard 3-act narrative? I would like to
hmm
I'd like to find more of that.
yeah, definitely. That's kind of what I wanted to do with this podcast is like find those little hidden gems.
Oh, we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
We're gonna
definitely.
go on the hunt.
It sounds good to me. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yep, yep.
Your mic cut out, so I
Oh,
wasn't
shoot,
sure.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, do you wanna add any more, or are you calling it?
I guess we can call it because I don't have a whole lot more. I touched on the things that I forgot about earlier, so I'm good if you're good.
Yeah, man, I'm good.
All right. Well, next time we'll be doing Flatliners. So until then, later, guys.
See ya.